It was supposed to be a simple date night. Ethan and Marissa had been together 5 years, and lately things felt strained. Too many nights on their phones, too many conversations ending in silence. So when Ethan suggested they go out to the old Crestwood Theater, the one that had just reopened after decades, she smiled for the first time in weeks. They got popcorn, shared a Coke, found their seats in the middle row. The lights dimmed, and a soft jazz melody played before the previews. It felt almost romantic. Halfway through the film, Ethan felt himself getting drowsy. The hum of the projector, the warmth of Marissa's shoulder, the smell of butter. It was hypnotic. He blinked once, twice, and then darkness. When he opened his eyes, the movie was still playing, but the sound was gone. He sat up. The popcorn bag was cold. The screen flickered silently. "Marissa?" he whispered. No answer. He turned to his right. Her seat was empty. The theater was empty. Every row, every aisle, silent. He stood slowly, his shoes sticking to the floor. "Hey," his voice echoed faintly. He walked to the aisle and peered toward the lobby. The exit lights were off. Only the projector beam cut through the dark, scattering dust in the air. "Maybe she went to the bathroom," he muttered, rubbing his eyes. He made his way down the steps, pushing open the door to the lobby. It was dark, no music, no concession lights, no chatter. The soda machines were unplugged. The posters on the wall were faded, peeling. Ethan frowned. The air smelled like mold. He walked to the front doors, chain shut from the inside. What the hell? He pulled harder, rattling the chain. It didn't budge. "Hello," he shouted. No answer. He turned, and for a second, thought he saw movement through the glass behind the ticket booth, a shape shifting in the shadows, but when he stepped closer, it was gone. He pulled out his phone. No signal. He tried the back hallways, the restrooms, the emergency exits. Every door was locked or sealed. It was like the whole building had been welded shut. He banged on the metal doors until his hands hurt. "Somebody, let me out." Silence. When he returned to the theater, the movie was still running, but now the screen showed static, and there was someone sitting in his seat. He froze. It looked like a man, slumped forward, hands clasped in his lap. The flicker of the screen made his shape twitch, in flashes of white and gray. "Hey," Ethan called out. The man didn't move. Ethan took a slow step closer. "Do you work here?" Nothing. When he reached the row, he saw the truth. The man wasn't breathing. His skin was gray, stretched thin. His mouth hung open, and his eyes were wide, dry and cracked, like he'd been sitting there for years. Ethan stumbled backward, gagging. He ran to the aisle, but the door to the lobby was gone, just gone. In its place was a blank wall. He turned, panic rising in his throat. The screen now showed something new, not static, but footage of the theater itself. He watched as a figure appeared on the screen, walking down the same aisle he was standing in. It was him. Ethan's voice trembled. "What is this?" The version of him on the screen turned, looking straight into the camera, straight at him. The speakers crackled, and his own voice came through. "You should have stayed awake." The projector clicked off. Total darkness. He ran toward where the screen had been, slamming his hands against it, but it felt soft, like cloth. He pushed through and stumbled into another theater. This one was identical, but older. The seats were ripped. The air reeked of dust and rot. He turned back, but the screen he'd come through was now solid wall. Rows of broken seats stretched before him, and in every one of them sat a figure, motionless, heads tilted, faces obscured by shadow. Ethan backed away. "No, no, no," a voice behind him whispered. "Enjoy the show." He spun around. Marissa stood there, smiling faintly. Her eyes were dull, hollow. "Marissa, thank God." But when he reached for her, his hand went straight through her shoulder, like smoke. She stepped back, her face flickering like film. "You fell asleep, Ethan. You missed the ending. What are you talking about?" She tilted her head. "You're in it." The figures in the seats began to stir, creaking, turning, their empty faces glowing faintly from the flickering screen. Ethan screamed and bolted down the aisle. He slammed against the emergency door. This time it opened. He burst out into an alley behind the theater. The night air hit him like a wave. He gasped, laughing, crying, everything at once. He ran to the street, but everything was wrong. The cars were rusted husks. The streetlights were broken. The buildings looked like ruins. The world was gray, silent, dead. He turned around. The theater behind him was boarded up, its sign faded, and hanging by a single bolt, Crestwood Theater, closed since 1972. He staggered backward, clutching his head. No, that's not possible. He saw something in the reflection of a broken window. The street,
the theater, and behind him, rows of faint glowing shapes inside the building, watching from the dark. He ran for blocks, searching for anyone, anything alive, but every street was empty, every shop abandoned. The world had moved on without him. Days passed, or maybe hours, he couldn't tell anymore. He found food that turned to dust in his hands. He slept in alleyways and woke to the same echoing silence. Sometimes he heard the sound of film reels spinning, faint, distant, like the whole world was one long projection still playing. When he finally broke, it was quiet. He sat on a cracked curb, staring at the empty skyline. "I want to wake up," he whispered. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small shard of glass from a broken frame he'd found in the theater. His reflection in it was warped, grainy, flickering like a movie reel. "I'm already gone," he said softly. The glass caught the last bit of light before he pressed it against his wrist. When he fell, his eyes stayed open, watching the sky fade to black. Then, the faint sound of a projector starting, and from far away, a man's voice echoed softly, "Welcome back to the show." The screen faded to white.
Nobody remembers when he started, only when he stopped. And by then, the town of Renfield had already buried 23 bodies. They called him Jolly the Clown, though no one had ever seen him laugh. He wore a pale white mask, painted with a frozen smile, and a costume made of patchwork colors that looked stitched together from something that wasn't fabric. Some said it was skin. He carried no gun, no knife. He didn't need one. He was known for making his victims disappear in ways that didn't make sense. Rooms locked from the inside, blood trails that led in circles, and symbols drawn in dust, shaped like balloon animals. It started as whispers, then became news, then legend. But for Samantha Hill, it was just another story. She was 27, working the overnight shift at a small gas station off the highway, the kind of job that felt like the world had forgotten you. Her friend Mike had called earlier that night. "Don't work alone, Sam," he'd said. "They said he's back." She laughed. Jolly the Clown's an urban legend, Mike. But when she hung up, she locked the back door anyway. By 2 a.m., the world outside the glass felt still. No cars, no sound, no movement. Just the soft hum of the fluorescent lights. Then the music started. A faint jingle, a calliope tune, drifting from somewhere beyond the pumps. Sam froze. It was a circus melody, slow, off-key. She stepped to the window and peered out. Across the parking lot, under the buzzing lights, stood a shape, a clown. He was tall, thin, wearing a tattered yellow and red costume. His mask was cracked, his grin jagged and frozen. One side of his face drooped slightly, like the paint had melted. In his hand, he held a single red balloon. Sam's voice shook. "Mike?" The clown tilted his head. She blinked, and he was gone. She backed away, heart racing. Her phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. "Knock, knock." She stared at it. Then, knock, knock, from the glass door. She turned slowly. Nothing there. She grabbed the phone behind the counter and called 911. The operator's voice came through static. 911, what's your... A second voice interrupted. A whisper, distorted, crackling through the line. "Do you want to see a trick?" The line went dead. Sam dropped the phone. Her reflection in the glass door looked warped, stretched, until she realized it wasn't her reflection. The clown was standing inside. She screamed, grabbing the flashlight. But when the beam hit the far wall, there was no one there. Just a red balloon tied to the doorknob. She ran to the door, flung it open, and stumbled outside. The air was cold, the parking lot empty. Then she saw something written on the concrete in white chalk. "Smile, you're on stage." Her breath caught. She turned and saw a camera, an old camcorder, perched on a crate, its red light blinking. She stepped closer and saw her own face on the screen. Live feed. Behind her, something moved. The reflection in the monitor showed a tall figure stepping out of the shadows, the clown. Before she could scream, the lights flickered and everything went black. When they came back on, the camcorder was still recording, but the frame was empty. Only the red balloon remained. 2 days later, Detective Lang was called to the scene. No signs of forced entry, no struggle,
No Samantha, just a single VHS tape sitting on the counter. The label read, "For laughs only." He took it back to the precinct, popped it into the player, and hit play. Static. Then, the inside of the gas station. A clown stood in the frame, silent. He waved to the camera. Behind him, Samantha sat tied to a chair, her face pale, trembling. She whispered something, but the sound was distorted. Jolly tilted his head, then snapped his fingers. The lights went out. When they flickered back on, Samantha was gone, but something else was in her place. A life-sized mannequin, wearing her clothes. Lang hit pause, then rewind. He slowed the footage, watching frame by frame. For a single second, just one, the clown turned directly to the camera. His mask cracked slightly, revealing something underneath, a human eye. Lang recoiled. Then he realized the eye was crying. He hit eject, heart pounding, and flipped the tape over. On the back was a message scratched into the plastic. "You watched the show, now you're part of it." That night, Lang went home and locked every door. He poured himself a drink, trying to shake the image of that single crying eye. The TV flickered on by itself. The same circus tune began to play. Lang froze. On the screen was his own living room. From behind his couch, a red balloon rose slowly into view. He turned. Nothing there. He reached for his phone, but the screen glitched, and a message appeared. Knock, knock. Knocking. Knocking echoed from his front door. He stood there, shaking, gun in hand. "Go away," he shouted. Silence. He crept forward, looked through the peephole, and saw his own eyes staring back. The glass cracked. He stumbled backward, fired his gun, the sound ringing through the empty house. When the neighbors called the police the next morning, they found Lang in the living room. No forced entry, no intruder, just a red balloon tied around his wrist. Then a motel, then a subway platform. Every time, the footage changed slightly. Every time Jolly's mask looked a little more cracked. And every time, a new name was added to the chalk drawings on the floor. No one ever caught him. But they say if you hear carnival music late at night, far away, faint and distorted, you should never follow it, because Jolly loves an audience, and once the show starts, it never ends.
The forest was still that morning, too still. Thomas Avery had hunted these woods since he was a boy. He knew the smell of pine and the rhythm of the birds. But that morning, as the fog drifted low across the hollow, there was no sound, no birds, no wind, not even the crunch of distant deer. It was mid-November, the start of turkey season. He parked his truck at the old trail gate, slung his shotgun over his shoulder, and hiked into the trees. The air was damp and cold, and each step sent up the faint smell of wet leaves and moss. He found the clearing by sunrise, the same one he'd used for years, but something was different. Near the edge of the clearing, half buried in the dirt, was a wooden box. It was small, about the size of a toolbox, and covered in dark stains. The wood was old, warped, carved with odd symbols he didn't recognize. The lid was sealed shut with a rusted latch, wrapped with 3 strips of leather. He crouched and brushed away the leaves. The carvings were strange, circles within circles, jagged lines that looked almost like teeth. He should have left it there, but curiosity always whispered louder than caution. He lifted it, feeling the weight. Inside, something shifted, a dull clunk, like a rock sliding against metal. He brought it back to his truck, tossed it in the passenger seat, and headed home. By the time he reached his cabin, the fog had thickened, wrapping the trees like smoke. He set the box on the kitchen table. The latch broke easily. Inside were 3 things: a small glass jar filled with dark soil, a length of bone carved into a whistle, and a folded piece of yellowed paper. He unfolded it. On the paper, written in faded ink, was one sentence: "If you hear it, don't look." He frowned. Probably some hunter's prank. He tossed the note aside, pocketed the whistle, and went about cleaning his gear. That night, the wind picked up, the forest creaked. Around midnight, he woke to a sound, a faint whistling from outside. Not the wind, not a bird. It was rhythmic, deliberate. He sat up, heart pounding, and looked through the blinds. The fog outside glowed faintly under the porch light. The whistling stopped. Then came 3 slow knocks on the cabin door. He froze. After a moment, he grabbed his shotgun and stepped carefully toward the door. Must be some hiker, he thought. Lost. He opened it. No one there. Just the fog. Something moved in the trees. A shape, tall and thin, sliding between trunks. He raised the gun, but the shape melted back into the mist. The air smelled like earth, like the soil from the jar. He shut the door, locked it, and stayed awake until dawn. The next morning, he found prints in the mud outside the porch, barefoot, but long, the toes sharp like claws. He packed the box into the back of his truck, intending to throw it into the river, but when he got there, the latch had sealed itself again. He pried it open. The jar was empty. The whistle was gone. That night, the whistling returned, closer now, circling the cabin. Thomas didn't move. He sat in the dark with his shotgun, staring at the front door. The sound stopped. Then came a low scratching along the wood. Slow, deliberate. He turned on the porch light. Nothing there, except for the whistle, now hanging from a nail on the door frame. He didn't touch it. The next day, he drove to town, but no one believed him. The sheriff laughed, told him to lay off the whiskey. When he returned, the cabin door was open. Inside, the box sat in the middle of the floor. The paper was gone. In its place was a new note, written in fresh ink. You looked. He heard the floorboards creak behind him. He turned and saw footprints forming in the dust, one by one, moving toward him. He ran, out the back, through the trees, across the ravine. The fog swallowed everything. He tripped and fell, sliding down the bank. When he looked up, the box was there, resting on a rock a few feet away. He backed away slowly. The lid opened by itself. From inside, a hand emerged, pale, dirt-covered, thin as bone. Then another. The thing that climbed out had no face, only the faint impression of features pressed beneath skin, like something trying to remember how to be human. It held the whistle in one hand and raised it to where its mouth should have been. The sound that came out wasn't a tune. It was laughter, silent, shaking laughter that he could feel in his bones. He ran until his lungs burned. When he reached the road, dawn was breaking. He turned. The fog had vanished. The forest was empty. He went home, packed his bags, and drove until the mountains disappeared behind him. He sold the cabin, moved across the state, changed his number. Months passed. One morning, while unpacking boxes in his new house, he found something wedged between them. The wooden box. Same carvings, same dark stains. This time, no latch. He opened it. Inside was a photograph of himself standing in his old cabin, asleep in his chair. In the background, through the window, something pale watched from the trees. He dropped the photo, heart racing, breath shallow. Then faintly, from outside, came that familiar whistle. Not far, right behind the wall. He turned slowly toward the sound and smiled.